All right, people, good late afternoon. Game wrapped up about a half hour ago. And look, there's not going to be any panic here. There's not going to be any freak out here. I mean, it's a preseason game. You shouldn't ever really be freaking out about that. So don't worry about any of that. It's just a game where circumstances kind of dictated that things were not going to go all that well for you, but that was ugly. That was an ugly game by the Seattle Seahawks, and they deserve to lose 20-7. That's about what I can say about that. 20-7 Green Bay. Game got pretty sluggish at the end there in particular. Green Bay jumped up 20-0 and held on to that lead until about 11, 12 minutes left in the fourth. We finally broke the end zone, broke the plane, got our only points of the day, had other opportunities to score, but just couldn't punch it in. We had a possession inside the 5-yard line, end in 0 points. We had a possession into field goal range, resulted in no points. We had that drive at the very end of the game where we got the ball right around the 25 and fumble, effectively ending it. And yeah, that's it's not terribly surprising. It's not, especially when you see the strategy at play in this game. But it still certainly could have gone better. And I imagine that right now, everybody's focus and attention is on what happened with the quarterback in this game, because we only played one quarterback in this game, and there was a lot of hype around what he was going to do, what he was going to show us. We got a full 60 minutes of Jalen Milroe, and he was okay. Let me say this. I don't think it was all bad. I don't. I'm going to say that right now. I don't think it was all bad. We'll talk a little bit about some of the good as this goes on, but that was not a very good game. That was not a very good game by Jalen Milroe. It was not a very good game by the offensive lineman that we put out there, although I don't think anybody should be terribly surprised by that. It wasn't a terribly good game by the play caller, who is apparently, for today, Andrew Janoko. Kubiak got the day off, and Janoko called plays. I don't think he did a very good job. And you get what you get. You get 250 yards of offense or so and 7 points. And that kind of hangs your defense out to dry, because I thought the defense actually played very well. The defense held Green Bay to about 200 yards. The defense actually held up Green Bay. They had 70 yards passing this whole game, but 13 points off of turnovers, and Green Bay gets the win regardless. So that's how things typically work in this league. That is how things typically go. But I'm not going to worry about anything. So let's dig in a little deeper. Look, Jalen Milroe, let's start there, because that's what everybody wants to talk about right now, because there's so much excitement here. That was bad. It was bad. I will not deny that. I'll say a couple things, though. Number one thing that he did do in this game that I think should make people feel at least a little bit of optimism. Now, I'm not saying overwhelming optimism, but a little bit, is the way in which he goes through progressions. So far, this has not been a one-read quarterback. This has been a quarterback who looks at his first read, decides it's not there, goes to his next read, decides it's not there, goes to his third read. He goes through that progression very well. It looks like something an NFL quarterback would do. It doesn't look like that one read and go quarterback that you might have figured he is. It, in some ways, already looks more advanced than what he was doing in college with Alabama. That part is, I think, encouraging. So if you want some silver linings here, I would say that. I would also say Janoko, I feel like, did a pretty poor job of putting Milroe in good situations. A lot of straight dropbacks, a lot of pure passing sets. Milroe is a guy who needs to use his legs. Milroe is a guy you need to put on the move. And I don't think we did that enough here. He did use his legs occasionally, but it was quite often not part of the plan. It was the play broke down. He's got to take off and try to go do something. He had multiple scrambles like that today. Especially on those third downs and fourth downs, I don't know why you wouldn't put Milroe on the move. I understand that you're trying to put him in uncomfortable situations because it's the preseason. You're trying to turn him into more of a passing quarterback because he's going to need to be that. But I don't know if it's good for him to be put in those suboptimal situations right now. Especially when, by the way, just to kind of go ahead and flip it the other way, while Seattle was playing in many cases, third stringers and even fourth stringers on their offense. Green Bay actually played starters for the first couple drives of this game. And even when they pulled the starters, they were still playing players that were more prolific than ours, higher on their depth charts, more likely to make the NFL. It was a mismatch. So I feel like getting Milroe on the move would have maybe helped mitigate that a little bit, but we didn't do it that much. Now, the fumbling, that is on Milroe. The first one, okay, he gets blindsided. Gerald does a really bad job, and Gerald did not play a very good game today in general, by the way. That's one thing. Losing the fumble on the quarterback sneak, really, really bad, really, really not okay. Really, really ugly play when you watch it on replay. Looked like he just got completely careless and was just completely untethered from the reality of what he needed to do. And, of course, the last one where I know it's not a perfect snap, but it hits him in the hands. Every reason to believe he should have caught it, and it bounced off his hands. And there were one or two plays where he put the ball in harm's way through the air. He could have thrown an interception once or twice in this game, too. So it was a very, very bad game on those fronts. I think some of the sacks that he took, yes, some of them are because the offensive line was playing very poorly. But there were also some where he's holding onto the ball too long. He's not making a decisive enough throw, not making a decisive decision. Look, he's going to make the team. I'm going to say that right now because I'm seeing some people out there trying to say, oh, we need to cut him. He needs to not be on this team. We need to try to get him to the practice squad. He's so not NFL ready. We can't have him on the 53. I'm sure that's not going to happen. But what I hope today does is remind people that he is miles away from being able to play in a real NFL game. He spent most of this game still playing against Green Bay third stringers. I know it wasn't the whole game. I know Green Bay try-harded at the start there with the starters, but we had plenty of reps against Green Bay guys that are trying to make the roster as well, who are unlikely to make the roster, and things didn't get radically better. So what I'm hoping that comes out of this is that Seahawks fans slam the brakes. Sam Darnold is your quarterback for this year. Drew Lock is the backup for this year. Next year, quite possibly the same thing. It's possible that Milroe won't even really get a real chance to play quarterback in this league until 2027. And today, I think, should have reminded people of why that is for the best. He's just not there yet. This game could have been uglier than it was in a slightly altered timeline. A couple of those balls get intercepted, and we're talking about a catastrophe. Again, I don't think it changes the fact that we're seeing some promising signs, but this guy isn't ready. And I hope everybody else is on that page right now, because the last thing I want to see this year is for Sam Darnold to go out onto the field at some point, throw a couple incomplete passes back to back, and then have all the fans screaming for Jalen Milroe to take the field. We don't need that. He doesn't need that. Nobody needs that. Again, I want to stress this offensive line. There's not a ton that Milroe could have done that was a ton better than what he did. I'm sure he could have been better. It doesn't excuse the turnovers in particular, but we didn't even play our backups for the most part. We went to guys that are probably not making the team. We went to third stringers, guys like Bryce Cable-Dew, guys like Mason Richmond. Both those guys played pretty awful today. I know Christian Haynes had a pec injury in the joint practice, so he didn't get to play at all. Now, I don't know if Christian Haynes is radically better than those guys, but I do think he is better. So that could have made a little bit of a difference. We didn't get to see any Oluwatimi. We were trying Richmond at center for a good chunk of this game. That may have made a difference. Oluwatimi is certainly better than the guys behind him. So what it is. I'm not gonna have a freak out about it. I'm not. I mean, look at the running backs we played in this game. Yeah, we couldn't run the ball that well. The running game, we had one really long carry for about half our yards. Other than that, the running game was pretty dead. But no starter, no backup, no third stringer. We had zero action for Walker, Charbonnet, or Halani. So those three guys are likely safe. Everybody that we used as a running back today may not make this team. Jacardia Wright, Damian Martinez, Anthony Tyus III. We may get to week 1 and none of those guys are on the 53-man. I think that there's a chance for Martinez. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's on the practice squad. Jacardia Wright strikes me as a practice squad guy. I think that is a pretty firm indication that at some of these spots, this team has already made a decision. They already know what Helani is. They don't need to know any more about him. He's the starter, he's the guy, and it's cool. One guy on the offense I want to shout out positively. One guy that I think was our best player on offense was Cody White. He was great on punt returns as well, by the way. He had multiple good punt returns. But what he did as a receiver in this game, he had the touchdown catch. He had another nice catch on, I think it was a 4th down, doing some stuff along the sideline with Milroe. He was probably the offensive MVP today. And I thought, he's making this tough, right? He is making this difficult for the Seahawks. We have cut down coming up in a few days. And Cody White was a guy who I assumed was on the outside looking in. And maybe he was. Maybe he still is. But now you're looking at it and you're going, okay, we know this guy can be a fairly capable receiver. We know this guy can get stuff done as a wide receiver. We know this guy is also providing value on special teams, maybe as a punt returner. Also, remember, he blocked a punt last year. He can do some of that stuff. He's done more than Ricky White, even though Ricky White is going to be cheaper and younger. Now we've got this Jake Bobo concussion situation, which doesn't seem like it's that bad, but time will tell. You've got Derek Young barely playing today. He's making it hard. And there were a lot of difficult decisions for the Seahawks to make over the next couple days. I don't know if Cody White has become one of those difficult decisions that needs to be made, but I think that it's a strong possibility. And at this point, as a Seahawks fan, I feel like he probably provides more immediate value to this team than a guy like Ricky White. And maybe ultimately you just have to let the guy go that you think is more likely to make it to the practice squad and make the decision that way. But he was our best player today. Receiving, special teams, I think he did really good stuff all around. And that's about it for the offense. Other than that, it was a pretty quiet day for everybody else. Scantling made a couple catches, but I don't feel like he took over or made a big statement or anything. So let's flip on over to the defense. Really good. I think that, especially given the situations they were put in, Green Bay had 200 yards in this game. What else are you going to do? Green Bay had 70 yards passing. They barely had 100 yards net passing. That's going to get it done a lot. And obviously, we didn't see any Jordan Love. Malik Willis is out there. He can't really throw a football that well. Very limited with what he can do. Nevertheless, I still think that the defense played... Excuse me. The defense played about as good as you can, especially when you're on the road. You are getting to see some of Green Bay starters. Like I know Josh Jacobs was out there for at least a little bit. They got Matthew Golden out there, and he may not start for them, but he's their big, exciting rookie that everybody's in love with. So I think that there is something to take away from the way that defense played. Late in that game, they really clamped down and allowed Seattle to at least stay in the game. Jared Ivey, that's another guy who's making difficult decisions for the Seahawks, right? He was really good out there today. Really, really effective setting the edge, really effective against the run. And what are you doing? Is Jared Ivey just going to be your guy for the first few weeks while we wait for Nwosu to come back? Can you get away with that? Because you also had Jamie Sheriff. He came up with a sack. He had some other good plays in this game. That's the decision. Before this game, I thought it was Ivey. I still think it's Ivey, but maybe it's neither. Maybe they find a way to make it both somehow. I don't see how you do that, but it's on the table. Pat O'Connell. I thought Pat O'Connell was great today. I thought Pat O'Connell actually, not only did he make good plays against the run, that interception by Okada, which was not really an interception, but whatever, that interception by O'Connell is largely created by, that interception by Okada, largely created by O'Connell with his hook drop. Forces the bad pass in many ways. So a guy who I've been pretty down on so far this preseason in Pat O'Connell really put his name forward as a guy that maybe deserves to make this team as a backup linebacker. Drake Thomas also played really good, by the way. I thought Drake Thomas might have been, I don't know if he was our best player defensively, but don't sleep on him. He was very, very good in this game. I didn't see Josh Ross out there, so I don't know if it's going to be him. I know McDonald likes Ross, but maybe you like the guys who are out there a little bit better. And the way those two played today, I thought both backup linebackers played really well. Even at Tuputala, I thought actually had some nice plays. It's going to be hard to pick a guy who is currently not playing. And while we're here, Okada. Okada had a great game as well. It's not just the interception, although regardless of whether or not that interception should count, it was a great play by him. But I thought he played a great game outside of that. Really strong coming up against the run and really good playing in the box. Demarion Williams had the pass interference in the end zone where he didn't get his head turned around. But I thought Demarion Williams showed some really good aggression from the secondary in this game. I liked what I saw from most of the players on that side. And again, Green Bay was pushing their guys a little bit harder than we were. How many players did we play on defense today that are going to be key contributors for the defense this year in the regular season? Probably none. Maybe the closest thing would be Shaq Griffin, Nehemiah Pritchett, Jamie Sheriff. That's the best you can say right now, right? Barring a catastrophic injury, none of those guys are going to be doing big things for the team this year. We might get a little bit from Sheriff, a little bit from Ivy, a little bit from Shaq, a little bit from Pritchett. We didn't even get to see a guy like Emin Wari, who's probably going to be a part-time player at first. It's good to see there are things going on with this team that are beyond just the skill level of the players. Like, we saw another safety blitz with D'Anthony Bell, and I think D'Anthony Bell's been great on the safety blitz so far this preseason. He finally got home on one, but you can see that when they get him on the field, they really like to send him. I'm sure that's something you're going to see with the main safeties when they're out there in a couple of weeks. But yeah, defensively, I got very little to criticize. I think the worst thing that happened today was probably Malik Willis got the edge on a 3rd down and I think a 4th down in this game, where we just didn't contain him well, and he got outside the pocket and made a play with his legs to convert. I think that led to Green Bay's only touchdown of the day. That was really the only thing that stood out to me. There were a couple of moments where they pushed us around a little bit and bullied us, but that didn't bother me because I think Green Bay was playing their guys a little bit more, and you're not going to stop them on every single play anyway, especially when you're this team and you don't know what you're doing in nose tackle. Although, I saying all that, J.R. Singleton was great too. That's another guy who's made a difficult decision for the Seahawks this week. J.R. Singleton seemed like the forgotten guy. We were focusing on Peely or Bohanna, who's going to be our young dark horse nose. And I thought it was going to be one of those two guys. I still think it probably will be, but Singleton was great today. I thought Singleton made multiple plays. Not easy to make plays as a nose tackle. That's another tough decision. And special teams was way better this week too. No big punt returns, no kick returns. We had like 4 pretty good punt returns, a couple decent kick returns as well. We didn't try any field goals, so I can't really speak to that, but special teams was way better. So not really a good game. I understand that there's going to be a little bit of frustration this week, but we're going to move past it real quick here. We got to understand what the priority was today. Seems like we dodged the worst with the injuries on Bobo and Tyler Hall at least, but we'll find out more later this week. See you guys later. Go Hawks. More stuff coming soon. Streaming on YouTube tonight. Streaming on Twitch tonight. You know the drill. Go Hawks. We're just 15 days away from games counting.